Welcome everyone. Like I said, we're here to talk about security and risk analysis, the SRA major. My name is Susie Decker. I'm one of the advisors. We have with us Dr. Mike Hills, who is one of the professors in the program, who's going to give us a few words of wisdom. And then when he's finished, we have Jake Grossman, who is a graduating senior. I think I just called you a senior last time. He is a graduating senior. And we will hopefully have a few minutes to answer some questions. You are welcome to unmute yourself and speak out. And if that is not what you want to do, then we also have the chat open and you're welcome to type some things. All right, please go.
All right, such a deal. Let me fire up my screen here and get this party started. Why is that not loading? All right, we're going to try that one more time. It's like something stalled in the middle. All right, well, for some reason it will not allow me to go in presentation mode. That's fine. You can see my screen though, right? Hey, Jacob, give me a yes or no on that, please.
Yep, we can see your screen.
Well, good. I don't know why it won't allow the presentation mode. It just goes blank, but hey, we'll rough it. So I am Mike Hills. I got my doctorate here at Penn State in the College of ISD, of all things. Not quite in this particular area. I was a graduate student, obviously, so a little different focus, but come off of 30 years of time in the Air Force, so have a pretty interesting military background that I bring with me. I was a cyber operations officer for the last 20 or so years of my career. Before that, I was an enlisted guy, so I was doing all sorts of cool things where they still let me touch stuff and do work, but then I became an officer and it got a little bit different. So anyway, that's my background. Really appreciate you coming in here and looking a little bit at the security and risk analysis program. I'm going to give you kind of a whirlwind tour, and like I said, hopefully we'll have a little bit of time for question at the end of it to answer any specific questions you may have. If you got something along the way though, and you can manage to get a word in edgewise, hey, I encourage you to go ahead and ask your questions as we're moving along, but certainly at the end we'll try and have some time. So security and risk analysis, what is it? Well, you know, in a nutshell, you know, it's changed a little bit. It used to have two different focuses. ICS is what has morphed into our cyber option, and what's left over and still thriving as a program is the intelligence analysis and modeling side of it. What it's looking to do is train and bring about a very smart workforce that knows how to deal with these huge volumes of data, all these data points that we can gather to use them in solving national security oriented problems, disaster response options, things of that nature that support our individual, organization, and national interests. So it's a very broad area, a lot of different areas you can go into, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But sometimes people ask, is the program right for me? How would I know that? Well, these are some of the things that might make it attractive to you. If you like to protect people, information, assets from some of those man-made or natural threats I was talking about, things like Hurricane Katrina a number of years ago was quite devastating. Having to manage a recovery effort, things like that was really quite interesting, because it was one of the first times that they made use of things like Twitter and Facebook, check-ins that you're okay and things of that nature, to try and assist in the management of trying to save as many lives as you possibly could. And so, that's really a very interesting aspect of it. If you understand how our country's national security apparatus works, or you're interested in that, it's another thing that would make it a very good match for you, because that's one of the things that we guide our students to learn to be able to support. Also, if you're mission oriented, you don't have to be like me and do 30 years in the Air Force. But some of the things that go on in the national security sphere require you to have that mission-oriented, can-do. Hey, I'm going to work more than an 8-hour day to get this problem solved, because it's an important problem, and it's one that maybe lives are on the line, or significant property, things like that. And it allows an incredible amount of creativity to be shown. When you're trying to solve some of these really difficult problems, how to get enough bottled water into a place that you can't even drive to, getting enough air assets to be able to support an airlift to get people out of a hurricane zone or an earthquake or something like that. Just really interesting things that can really make you feel like you've made a difference in life. That's another thing that makes it a good match. And then finally, our critical infrastructure. You think about all the threats out there, all the people and places and organizations and folks that want to do harm. A lot of them point that at our critical infrastructure, things like our nuclear power plants, our electric grid, gas distribution, dams, all those type of things. So if you have interest in those areas, this might be the place for you, because that definitely matches up with what the major is looking for. A couple of key classes I like to talk about, just some things that help grow you into a really seasoned professional in this area. SRA 231 is a really interesting course on decision theory and analysis. How do you come up with all the different courses of action that you might take to solve a problem? You've got a couple of different things. Just think of a simple thing like you're going to take a trip somewhere. Well, how are you going to get there? Are you going to go by car? Are you going to go by bus? Are you going to go by plane? What are the drawbacks and the pros and cons? Well, if I fly, it'll get me there faster, but I can't take as much stuff. So maybe I want to drive. But hey, both of those are a little bit expensive. The bus is cheaper, so maybe I got to, kind of weigh all those things together. And if I've only got, $49.50 to get myself to wherever I want to be, well, then I've got to pick the right course of action that gets me what I have to get done, so that I can move on. And so, decision theory is very important. That's a very simplified version. Imagine that you're trying to figure out how to secure Hoover Dam or something of that nature. There's a lot of different considerations for something a little bit more significant like that. SRA 311, risk analysis, whether you take the W version or not, depends when you entered the program. It's turned into a W for the moving forward in the IAM option, but it still covers the same basic material, just one has a little bit more writing involved with it. But this is basically threat analysis, vulnerability analysis, consequence analysis. Risk analysis at its core is often stated to be a misnomer, because the risk isn't what really scares us, right? Okay, if there's a 80% probability of something happen, it isn't the 80% that scares me. It's what happens if the 80%, and that seems like a pretty good chance of it happening, happens. It's the consequence I'm concerned with. If it's that I'm going to lose my ice cream cone to a bird flying by, well, then I might take my chances. But if it's something that's going to, wreck my car or result in bodily harm, well, then 80% doesn't sound too great, because the consequence could be quite devastating. And then finally, the Capstone course, SRA 440, is a real world kind of analysis of a problem. We try to draw things from the real world, maybe put some artificiality into it just to make it work in the classroom, but it's based on real events, real things that are going on out there that require students to take all that they've learned and put it into a consolidated effort to solve a problem. And sometimes you have to step out of your discipline or the culture that you're used to do that, because the problem may not be in the sphere that you've had experience working in. Even though you've done multiple internships, it might be in a different area than things that you've done, which we'll talk about internships in a little while. That said, it's such a broad area. The ways and places that you can land are just extraordinary. Business intelligence analysis, that's a very up and coming thing. You can think of all the different places that run a business, and keeping track of the supply chain, and keeping track of, what are the COVID impacts trying to get out in front of, what should I be doing? The restaurant industry has transformed itself during this time, having to react to COVID. You see so much more al fresco dining, outdoor dining and things like that, which has required changing in the licensing, changing in the numbers of people that can be served. Boy, if you would have known that was coming a year ago, if there could have been some intelligence that, sort of indicated that that might be something you needed to prepare for, wow, if you could have been a year ahead of it, imagine how far ahead of your competition you would have been. But it's also things like counterterrorism. Some people that I worked with in the Air Force actually worked very hard at recovering one of our service members who was shot down in Iraq during a firefight. His F-16 was shot down, and the insurgents carried his body away. His wife was devastated, didn't have any opportunity to say goodbye, have a funeral, things like that. But some of the counterterrorism people working with the Geospatial Intelligence Agency and the casualty collection people in the Army, they all put together a big thing, and the CIA was involved, and they finally figured out where they drug him to, and they actually found a shallow grave and were able to recover that body. Boy, how great do you feel about being able to do something like that and be contributing to, bringing a loved one home for someone? It's just a really powerful and meaningful work that you can be involved with. And then, of course, security analysis and risk analysis, are broad, spectrum things that you can apply to a lot of different areas. So that's kind of my whirlwind tour, short, sweet, and to the point. Now I'd like to open things up to Jacob, a student in the program, because he can kind of fill in the blanks of what that looked like from a student perspective. So Jacob, the floor is yours.
So the first thing I do want to mention is, Professor Hills and all the staff at the SRA program are really great at helping you get through and understand all the material. I got a question last group that I will bring up. It was also internships. And this program is very good at ensuring that you are prepared for the years afterwards. When it comes to going to college, we can all agree that the reason that we go is to find ourselves a job and find ourselves the tools that we need to find those jobs after college. And so my personal experience, I went to college saying, I want to make a big impact in the world. And I came to college saying, I'm going to be a doctor. I came in here saying, oh, doctors make the biggest impacts. But it wasn't the case. And so I went through all these chemie classes and stuff like that, just to turn around and go to the SRA program and see that, I can really make an impact here at SRA just as much, if not bigger, than I could if I was a doctor. I've personally flown around the country with a company and actually helped get small business organizations back online from ransomware, which, talk about an impact. I've had full-grown men crying because they were losing millions and millions of dollars because some hacker managed to unleash a phishing attack on a computer that was completely controlling all their infrastructure. And so these are the things that I got to learn about with SRA, and it really showed me that the impact that I make here is absolutely enormous. Like Professor Hill said, it is absolutely about how amazing this program is, but also how amazing it can be for you. You guys will find that this program will really help you and just give you open so many doors that, so many opportunities that you can go to almost any area that you really want. I mentioned last time, I have a friend who went through the SRA program and works for L'Oreal, which is a makeup company. And many people are like, well, makeup companies, security risk analysis. But that's the thing about this program, is that you have the ability to actually go almost anywhere. I know people who are working for the government, the CIA and the NSA. I know people who are working for accounting firms like myself. I know people who are working for insurance companies. You name it, and they definitely need a security risk analysis person. So that's my little push. But if anybody has any questions, I'd love to answer. And I know Professor Hills and Ms. Decker definitely will as well.
And we have 3 minutes here, but then we will take more questions back in the big room after. So anybody who would like to either unmute yourself and speak, you're welcome. Or if you'd like to type something into the chat, you're welcome too.
We've overwhelmed them. Well, I'll fill a minute or two until something breaks, but feel free to break in. I will expand on the internship thing just to say that there's a lot of support for finding those, and I think Jacob would agree that he had some very wonderful opportunities fall into his lap, really, because we've got faculty that do research in so many interesting areas, and still have their tendrils, plugged into some, buddies at the State Department or things like that. That's how we've gotten a few of the people working for the agencies, because, we've got a full bird Marine Corps colonel and Colonel Graham that, is still plugged into the DoD community. They're just great people with great connections, and sometimes can help you find the right fit. And the beautiful thing about it, you have to do one. It's a requirement for graduation anyway. So you might as well get your money's worth. I know Jacob came to me. He had such a good list of possibilities. He didn't even know which one to pick, so we had to go and do a little bit of that pro-con analysis on his options for that. So just some great stuff. I see a question popped up there in chat. I'm not sure what that said. Let me read that.
That was me.
Oh, okay, just administrative stuff getting us back to the room. I was excited. I thought a student had a question there. I was ready, man.
So here's a question that Jake, maybe you can answer. What's the best thing you've worked on in class? What's the most exciting project you've done in a class? And it does not have to be Dr. Hill's class.
That's right. That's right.
So I will point this out because I love Dr. Hill's classes. And currently the Capstone one, which I think is going unbelievable, but I won't mention that one yet until I get the grade. But what I will say is that one of my courses, and you guys will take this course too when you go through the SRA program, was threat of terrorism and counterterrorism. And I took it with a professor named Dr. Szymanski, who worked for the FBI over in Italy. And so we actually sat down with a project, and he gave everyone in class, over 200 people, different countries a part of the G8. And through that, we had to share our intelligence reports and find a way to essentially agree and determine where a bomber would attack. And based upon all the intelligence reports that we would get each week, we would have to write what's called a bluff, which is a report. And then we'd have to send these reports to everybody else in the G8 and say, this is what we think's happening. Somebody send us some more information. And throughout the entire semester, we would actually gather so much information. And it ended up being an unbelievable time. I remember staying up until 3 a.m. being like, how is there a bomber and a chemist? What does this mean? And just trying to put all the information together. And understanding, risk analysis and all that stuff that goes into it is probably one of the coolest things that I've gotten to do. And I highly recommend you guys take the opportunity to look into it. I think a question just came in.
Yes. What is the difference between cybersecurity or SRA with the cyber option? Is the cybersecurity BS more technical?
So I will tell you this, the cybersecurity BS is a more technical option now that the cybersecurity or the SRA cybersecurity option is going to be taken away. I personally stuck with the cybersecurity, the SRA cybersecurity option, just because I found that the opportunities that come with SRA are so wide that I really liked the courses I was taking with. I liked the professors and the people that I had known. And the cybersecurity program is an unbelievable program. I have so many friends in it who wanted to go a more technical route. And so that's the way that they went. Both are great programs. I can only speak about the SRA program, but if anybody else wants more information, I know Ms. Decker could help. So what are the options in the SRA majors? So focuses include counterterrorism, as Professor Hills actually went through, as well as analysis, learning how to make decisions, learning how to understand risk and things like that. Because, one thing that I personally didn't realize is that not all risk is bad. Actually, some risk is positive. You need to have risk in life, unless you're not going to really make any decisions that are going to impact you. And so that's one of the biggest focuses that I learned from 231 and decision-making courses. As well as, you will learn some technical skills, which are very important, especially when you get into, analysis of materials and stuff like that, and modeling, which Professor Graham will go through. But there's just so many wide varieties that come with the SRA major. The capstone, you get to choose which direction you go with. So personally, I went with an application, but I'm not building the application. I have someone else in the group to do that. But you can actually choose any direction, which is why I love the SRA program.
Yeah, and to speak on just how technical the cyber option is as opposed to what the SRA ICS, this is a scenario of what your capstone looks like in the cyber major. They drop about 300 gigabytes of data on you, and they say, what happened? And you have to go through all the logs, and you have to pull up Wireshark and do packet analysis traces, and you need to reverse engineer malware to figure out who it talked to and where it went. All very, very, very highly technical elements. It was the purpose of the development of the cyber option to move in that more technical direction. That's been retired from the SRA option moving forward. So we're basically at that point where I'm getting the we are done here. But yes, the remaining area is really focused a lot on the counterterrorism and business intelligence type of things. So if you'd like to talk more, definitely get with your advisor. And if you want to talk more with professors or students like Jacob, we're here for you. So thanks for coming, and really enjoyed talking to you all, and hope to see you some majors here real soon.